Hi, and welcome to this week's Mortgage Broker Broadcast. My guest this week is Rachel Southcott, who is better known as the financial marketer. I wanted to get Rachel on the podcast. She's never been on the podcast before. And what I wanted to do is just have a bit of a chat with her about, she's specialised in marketing for a long time. She's niched into the mortgage broker world, financial sector, sort of 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago. And I just wanted to get to know a bit more, get a take on certain things. So yeah, let's just get her onto the podcast. You're listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast with me, Craig Skelton, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. So welcome to the podcast, Rachel. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, very good. As we can see from we've just had a quick chat about the lighting before we hit record on the podcast. So yeah, sun is shining in both parts of the world, so we can't complain right now. And thank you sort of for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I know you've been on a few podcasts recently, but we've never. It's always good to talk to somebody on the podcast that I've never really. I know we've messaged each other. I've looked at your in terms of I sort of see what you do on social, but it's just good to just talk to somebody with no preconceived ideas and just chat and just sort of see. And as people who listen to this podcast know, we never have an agenda, because if we did, I'd always go off on a tangent anyway. Never try to sort of script it, never try to do anything else apart from it is a conversation. So first of all, for those people that don't know who you are, not listened to you on the other podcast, do you want to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So in a nutshell, I offer digital marketing services to brokers and IFAs. So I do Google Ads, social media, SEO and content creation. And then there are other bits and pieces that kind of spill off from that. But in a nutshell, that's what I do.
Excellent. So that gives us clarity in terms of what you're doing. And I just wanted to there were various things I wanted to get your viewpoint on. And one of them was you talked on, you used a word which I really like, which came out, but then was a bit like, can I say that? Can I not say that? You said lazy was a word that came up on the podcast. So hopefully you can remember that, because you're smiling now about it.
Yeah.
But I think I get why you use that word, because there are brokers out there that, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong in terms of where my thinking's going with this, because I think there's brokers out there who don't know what to do, don't care about whether they know or not what to do, and just will pay somebody to do it for them, which are I'm not sort of saying the lazy ones, but they just don't, that they're too busy or doing other things. They don't want to be kept, it's too much time to be kept up with what's going on. But there are people that are not lazy, that do know what's going on, do understand they need content, do understand what they need to do, but then would rather pay somebody to do it because they don't have time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way you framed that, I would definitely wouldn't use the word lazy. I mean, I know I did on a different podcast.
It's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. There are people that know what they need to do, know they need to get out there and want to be more visible on social media, but they simply don't have the time or they don't have the tools. So it's not a case of being lazy. It's a case of kind of wanting to find out and get stuck in and not really knowing where to start. But then on the flip side of that, alluding to what you just said there are people that kind of want to pass it off to somebody else and not even think about it. They just want to pay somebody else some money and say, right, that's your job now, you get on with it. And in some regards, that can work depending on what the service is. But if it's social media, then more often than not, you do still need input from the client. So, it's got to be a bit of give and take. You can't just hand over some money to a third-party provider and say, there you go, get on with it. You've got to be involved in the process.
Absolutely, because we all talk about how customers, the clients, need to see personality. They need to see you as a person. That's who they're buying into. That's who they're building. That's who the brand is, and that's who you're trying to build trust from an advisor, from a broker's point of view with that client. So if you're not of some sort of face of the social media, then, or whether that's a website or social media platforms or whatever the case may be, then I'm guessing that's a bit of a doing part of it without really doing the full extent of what they should be doing, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand. You know, I work with several advisors and brokers, and I manage both company profiles on social media as well as individual profiles. And when it comes to the individual profiles, which is typically on LinkedIn, you can see there's a huge difference between one advisor to the other in terms of how they engage with me and also the end result. Obviously, everybody, the whole point of doing it is that they want to generate business. They want to increase their visibility and get more leads through the door. And whilst I offer the same service to both advisors, one sees far more success than the other. And I really do put that down to the level of time investment and interest that they've got in their own social media. One person, you know, is constantly sending me photos and videos and updating me on what they're up to, which is amazing because that gives me enough content to create those socials. And then other people are just kind of, you know, passed it on to me off their plate. And unfortunately, they don't get the results that I want to see for them. So
is that because they just see it as a tick box sort of exercise where thinking, I know I need to do content, I know I need to have some sort of profile on platforms. However, they don't see it as fundamental part of their business. Is that the way that they're thinking? Is that sort of from your experience?
Possibly, yeah. And I wonder whether if people haven't yet seen success on social media and haven't yet seen leads come through, maybe that's why they're perhaps a little bit reluctant or not really too fussed about investing the time and effort. I think when you start to see results, let's just take the gym, for example, you know, if you go into the gym and you start to see results, that automatically motivates you and spurs you on because you're seeing it. And so you want to multiply that effect. So perhaps people that are not really invested in social media, maybe they just haven't had any success. And so they're not wanting to multiply that further, if that makes sense.
I think it's a good point because I know that I made about one word that I use with it is about content is persistence. You've not got to, it's a hard one because we're in a world of results. We're in a society of results, quick wins, and all the things. But then when you're looking at social media and your profiles and generating leads as a business, then it's a long-term plan. It's a long game. And to be honest with you, Rachel, the thing is with that is my frustration with it is that when people are sort of saying, "Oh, I'm not getting the results," and I've tried it for a week, it's like, wow. Yeah, you've got 5 connections on your Insta, you've got 5 followers on your Insta thing, and you've not got any leads, and you've been giving it a week. And so, like, people do expect, but as a broker, whether that's like we talked, you sort of obviously in introduction, you work with IFAs as well, is when people come into this, or they are an IFA or a mortgage broker, it's a long-term career option. This is something they're doing, not a quick win, not a quick instant hit and moving on to something else. It's a long-term thing. Why do they not view social media content and lead generation and branding in that same way? I don't get it.
Yeah, no, you make a good point there. I think people are kind of, you know, it's about managing expectations, isn't it? You know, and whenever I work with clients, I always say from the get-go, I cannot guarantee you any volume of leads or, you know, any time scales on when that's going to happen because I just don't do that and it's not realistic. So yeah, it does require time investment and patience and consistency.
Why? And then one thought question going through me, because you've worked in marketing for quite some time now. You've sort of, your background is marketing, but then you decided, was it 4 years ago? I think that you then decided to niche into the mortgage brokers and deal with mortgage brokers day in day out. Why would you do that?
You asked that question as though I'm mad and I've made a crazy. So I actually worked in the financial sector beforehand. So I've been doing marketing for I think between 8 and 9 years now. And you're right, it's been 4.5 years that I've been freelancing. And prior to that, those other 4 years, I was still doing marketing and I was still within the financial sector in an employed role. So I worked in kind of pensions, investments, ISAs. So it all kind of ties in one way or another back to financial services. Whilst I hadn't worked in wealth management or in a mortgage brokerage, it kind of happened to be the case that when I decided to go freelance, those were the types of clients that I was picking up. And then I kind of realized, actually, there's a market here for this. These individuals need these services and want it. And so I kind of leaned into that a bit more. And now it's all I do, really, to be honest. I don't work in any other sector.
Right. I think, no, I was joking there, and like you say, I was being facetious when I sort of, it's a bit of a leading thing, but I think it's because I always talk about it's mortgages, finance, they're not the most interesting subjects for social media. You're not going to sort of, they're not, and that's a problem sometimes from a broker's point of view, because they're a bit of a mundane, who wants to talk about getting into debt, who wants to talk about people don't talk about that with their friends and family, never mind sort of like wanting to talk. So it's not the most exciting of topics. So creating content can be difficult, but it's and that's why I was asking about niching into the mortgage broker world, financial advising, because like I say, it's what the end goal brings that's more exciting. The house, the retirement fund, the investment, whatever that looks like, that's more exciting than I've just got myself £200,000 in debt and I've got to pay £2,000 every month to something that I don't own right now, but I will do in the future. So yeah. So I was just joking about that, but obviously you must enjoy working with brokers and in the financial sector.
Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I've always been interested in personal finances, and I've always been really good with like managing money just from a young age. I'd have these little odd jobs here and there, paper rounds and stuff like that. And I'd earn £7.50 here and whatever it was. And I'd always kind of save up. So it's in that respect, it's something that I've been interested in for a long time. And I'm very good with my own kind of money management, personal finances. And I am just really interested in it, quite passionate about it. So yeah, that's another reason why I've continued down that path, I guess.
I think that's it. Like if you've got that, if you've got that interest, then absolutely, you feel as though you want to work with something in a sector that you're interested in, because like I say, you need to have some sort of motivation there when you're looking at the creative side of things and you're looking to sort of content. Going back to something that I was sort of going to ask you about is, do you find that you talked then about, and probably I led you a little bit in terms of one of the questions, but do you find that there are brokers out there, there are financial advisors out there that do look at this as a hybrid kind of thing? So they will create their own video content kind of thing, but then at the same time, branding and all the other things, then they will pay and work with somebody like yourself to then do that. Is anybody like that you work with, or are you finding people looking at doing that?
Do you mean that we kind of create the content for them together?
Yeah. So they're still the face. So they still see. So I'm the face. I'm still creating like the video kind of thing. I'm still seeing that person. There's a guy that I know that I work with, and he works with somebody who does. They do the branding. They do the daily post of text, image, logo kind of concept going on. But then every single day, he will post a reel himself. He's learned how to do that and sees the importance of doing that. So he's got, like I said, with the hybrid thing going on, where he's got somebody doing it, part of it, but then he's still doing things. So he's getting out content out there several times a day.
Yeah, I think I do always encourage clients to, it's kind of like a joint effort. That's the approach I like to take, because ultimately what I can do for them alone is not quite enough. With, like, for example, if I'm managing a client's personal LinkedIn profile, there are certain things that I won't do on their behalf. I won't necessarily reply to direct messages. I might flag them and say, look, I've seen an inquiry pop in your inbox. You might want to go take a look. Right. But I won't reply on their behalf. I won't write comments and engage with other posts on their behalf, because I just think that's a little step too far. I think they need to be doing that stuff themselves. And as you'll know, there's no point in being on LinkedIn if you're going to treat it as a one-way channel and you're just going to push your own content out there without engaging with other people. And so I do always encourage them and say, look, I can do so much for you. I can provide this amount of support. But if you really want it to work and you're really invested in this, you are going to have to get stuck in and do some of this stuff yourself, whether it's a little bit of content creation or whether it's, going in and engaging 10 minutes a day. It really does make a big difference to the end results. And I've seen that across, the clients that I work with from one end of the spectrum to the other, the amount of effort that they're willing to put forward, it makes such a big difference to the amount of leads that they get.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine. And do you sort of like set that? It's like you say, it sounds like a partnership going on. Do you like sort of set a partnership agreement right from the off to sort of say, this is what I will do for you, and then this is what I expect of you in return? Is there sort of like that to be able to work with somebody like yourself? Is that how you sort of set it up?
I haven't done traditionally, but the more I've worked with clients, the more I've realised that actually I need to be a bit more specific. We'll have the
At least you're learning, Rachel. At least that's learning.
Yeah. So I think I need to take it one step further, actually. And I think I need to actually document it and maybe put it into some sort of checklist or include it in the proposal. So rather than just saying it over Zoom, where it's going to go in one ear and out the other and straight over the head, I do think that it's something I've thought about recently, actually, is that I should probably put together a little document or a little checklist to say, this is what I recommend you do alongside what I'm doing.
This is what you have to do. You've got to be strict with them, Rachel. You can't sort of say, this is what I'm recommending you do. You've got to say, this is what you've got to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do for you. And I know you pay me to do this. However, this is a partnership in return. And I think that's sort of, you might find that the brokers you want to work with, the financial advisors you want to work with, will probably be more open to that. It's the ones that you don't want to work with that just want to have some sort of blame culture going, oh, I've tried that, didn't work, didn't do that didn't work, kind of thing. Look, and I can see you smiling now thinking, yeah, these things in your head thinking, yeah, you know who those people are. But that's not like a bad thing per se. It's just that they don't, I think it's because they've got, especially in the world of financial advisors and a lot of the brokers, because they've got power planners that do this for them. They've got this that does that for them. They pay out to people that will just do the job. Whereas this is just something very different. It's not just somebody a case you can give a power planner and say, right, can you just get that on the system or get me a report for that or do this or do that. It's just a lot more involved and a lot more sort of in depth from a partnership point of view. And I think that sometimes that's not a blame thing. I think that's just something that they're used to. And that's why I sort of said, like, when you sort of say, I recommend you doing it, it's like, well, no, this is what you need to do. And then I'll do what I need to do, kind of thing. So,
yeah. You're absolutely right. I've started to realise that, and I'm definitely going to take that bit of advice forward, because ultimately we're all working toward the same goal. I want them to get more leads. They want to get more leads. So yeah, just need to be a bit more specific on that.
No, and I think if you, like you say, set it out, the stall out from the start, is clarity for everybody, and then it sort of creates less drama in the future, shall we say. But that's something I've learned as well. So
yeah. Like you say, the clients that you want to work with are the ones that are fully invested in the process. And I think you can tell that from the off. When you're having an initial conversation with someone, you can kind of gauge where they're at in the process. And I'm not afraid to turn clients away if I don't feel like they're a good fit for that reason. So yeah.
And that's the thing, is they will work with somebody. It's not you. And I like find that from a coaching point of view, it's very much a partnership kind of thing. And that I'm like laughing because there's brokers that have come to me and wanted to work with me, and it's been a case of, no, it's just not going to work. But it's not. This is a partnership kind of thing. You don't employ a coach to do the videos for you, kind of. And in your kind of, you're not going to employ somebody to then go, you're like, Rachel's the face of Joe Blogg's mortgage brokers and Fred Smith's mortgage brokers and Tina, do you know what I mean? It's just, so you're not going to be that face of, there's got to be certain things that they've got to do themselves. But it can be difficult when they just think of, and do you find that because how do you feel about taking people out of the comfort zone?
Do you know what? I try so hard to push clients, and we have the same conversations and we go around in circles, and it always comes back to video. It's always the same conversation about getting on video. And every now and then they'll say, oh, social media is going great, but what do you think we could do differently, or what could we do more of? And I'll always say, don't forget, I keep telling you to get on video. But I get it. I understand that people are not necessarily comfortable in front of the camera, or maybe they've not got the time to keep recording videos. But we all know that it works well. And especially if you're an independent broker, it's a little bit different if most brokers have to generate their own leads anyway. So you are operating independently. So yeah, you've not only got to be out on social media, but you've got to put your face forward. You've got to create content and be the face of your own brand. So yeah, trying to get people out of their comfort zones is definitely a challenge.
They will have done it once. They'll have been the new broker once, so they've gone into the industry once, so they've been out of the comfort zone before. So, I hear you, Smash, it is a challenge, and I think, is it like how would you try to win over someone who is? I'm not saying win over is probably the worst probable word that I could use, or words you could use, but what I'm trying to say is, how are you you understand and they know that video content will work, you know that their video content will work. Is there anything specific going through? Do you find that most brokers are feeling this, or like, what is it that, is there anything particular that you sort of see common traits of why I can't do video?
I normally don't get an answer. It's one of those things where they try and brush it under the carpet and, oh, yeah, we'll come back to that. But for those who are a little bit reluctant, but you can kind of see that they want to do it and they know they need to do it, I try and reduce as much friction as possible for them by kind of giving them all the tools that they need. So I would, maybe write a few bullet points down as to what they could talk about, give them some tips for how to, nothing too technical, but just some basic stuff using the equipment they've got available to them, about how to set up the camera, lighting, things like that, just to try and hold their hand a little bit on it. And I've found that approach has worked. And once people have made a few, they do gain so much more confidence. It only takes 2, 3, 4 recordings before they're actually like, do you know what, this is not as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah, and that the thing is, they sort of see, like you like you said there about friction, because that's a big thing. Is sort of these, funnily enough, one of my recent podcasts that I've done, social, and some of my shorts have talked about distractions. If you're a self-employed mortgage broker, there's a good chance you work from home, you're working alone, there's distractions going on. So if Rachel's saying you need to create this video, but I know the windows need cleaning, or the dishwasher needs emptying, the dog needs to go out, or do you know what, there's something really good that on TV last night that I didn't catch, I want to catch up on, and I want to set myself instead. They will do what I don't get is they will do all those things before they actually get out of the comfort zone. But then when they was employed and when they were told what to do, where to go, what time, they just did it. There was no distractions of Netflix. There was no distractions of taking the dog out or anything else. They just did it. And I'm just trying to convince brokers that it's a bit of a mindset switch of, they've been used to that habit before of showing up and doing it and getting the jobs done, because if they didn't, they wouldn't get paid and they'd lose a job and the rest of it. But then things like this, when they're self-employed and they know it works, you're giving them all these tools, taking away all this friction. In this case, is just getting on and shooting it and just videoing it. I think is it because they're sort of scared of, is it the fear of rejection? Sort of is anything the sort of thoughts from your point of view why they choose not to do it?
That could be, for some people, that could be the fear of rejection and, maybe feeling a little bit embarrassed about putting out their first video, because I'm sure all of us have felt that when we did our very first video that we ever shared. I think all of us could probably agree that we were nervous to post it, didn't want to post it. So yeah, I guess fear of rejection is probably one of the key reasons that put most people off. But it's interesting what you say there about, you spoke about mindset and kind of the fact that people prioritize everything else before that one thing. And I can't think how the saying goes, but basically the idea is that you need to, the thing that you want to do least should be at the top of your list. I'm sure you've heard that phrased in a
Yeah.
different way before.
Eat the frog is one thing. Like people use eat the frog, but the thing is, you're absolutely right. People will choose, and I get it, and I understand, and I've been there myself, and thought, oh, do you know, it's like you shuffle those papers to then think, I'll just get this application submitted because I know what I'm doing with that. I'll just do this because I know what I'm doing with that. And the thing that takes them out of the comfort zone sits in the corner. And it's just, they should have some sort of like light on saying, I'm not going away. I'm still here. I'm going nowhere. You've got to do this and turn this light off before you leave today, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just, like I say, it's eat the frog, start the day with, get that done and out of the way, and it depends. And I think as well, particularly when you're self-employed as a mortgage broker, you can work to your strengths in terms of time as well. So as everyone knows, I'm a morning person. I'm up very early in the morning. I eat the frog first thing in the morning, get on, not from a breakfast, obviously. That's what you've been talking about. Just to clarify that, if somebody's come halfway through into the podcast gone, why is Craig having like frogs for breakfast? Is he going? The idea is like you then, because if by 9 o'clock or by whatever time you've got the biggest task done out of the way, you feel so much better as everything else. Whereas you're dealing with the easy mundane tasks, but you still know that you've still got to climb Everest in 10 minutes at the end of the day, rather than starting out first thing in the morning to climb Everest. It's not going to go away. What, like the elephant in the room, whatever the saying is, it's like, say, it's just, they'll just put off doing everything else rather than actually get on with it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I structure my days as well. I mean, I'm probably nowhere near as early a riser as you are, but I like to try and be at my desk for 7. And I do find that those first 2 to 3 hours of the day are the most productive for me. That's where I get my best work done. And so because I know that, I will always put the most important task, or perhaps it's not the most important, but it's the one that I want to do least. I will always put that at the start of the list, so that as soon as I wake up that morning and turn my computer on, I know exactly what I'm doing. And you're absolutely right. As soon as you've got it done and it's ticked off your list, you feel so accomplished and you feel ready for the rest of the day then. But when it comes to kind of making sure that people are a bit more disciplined with themselves, because I fall I fall foul of this too. We're talking about how people put off their priorities and put it onto the back burner. I do it as well. So as much as I would recommend to clients what they should be doing, I'm always so like, oh, I'm running out of videos in my content bank. I need to record some more videos. And I do eventually get around to it, but I think it's a case of, you've almost got to kind of like gear yourself up. And I think you've got to set time aside, pencil it in. You know, we put meetings in our calendars and appointments for all sorts of other things, but no one probably sets aside a specific period of time to create content, record videos, come up with ideas. And perhaps that could be something that works for people. If they stick it in their diary and set aside a specific slot, maybe they'll be more likely to get around to actually doing it.
I totally agree with you, and I think that is the way forward with it. It's then maybe something you could set up in your partnership agreements at the start, saying, right, I know that I've got to record a podcast and record 6 shorts every single week. At some stage that needs to happen. So obviously I have guest podcasts, other things I do solo ones. And the guest ones will just book in when they want to, like as and when. But Tuesday morning is my time to record a podcast and do 6 shorts. That is my time from the time I get into my office till it's done, which is usually, and if you know you're prepared for it, it takes you less time to do it. You won't put it off. You won't check your emails and have all my distractions are off. It's like, right, Tuesday morning, I know that I'm sat here and I'm going to get these done. And I'm not going to move until I get it sorted out. And I think, like, I've talked to other sort of content, people, and they talk about the same thing of just schedule it in. What I'm joking about is with sort of saying, right, what day out of all this, you need to be creating 1 video a week for me. When are you doing that? What day, what time is you doing? So you're setting that out from the start going, and then you can message them sort of saying, because I do that with my coaching, with my clients, holding them accountable. They'll sort of, I'll say to them, I'll drop them a quick text. How did that go today? And then they don't respond. They're going, yeah, you've not done that now. But then they're on the front foot going, oh, they did this, this, and this. It's then, that, and they're the kind of people you want to be working with, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's funny. They're probably sitting there thinking, how did what go? What was supposed to happen today? What day of the week is it?
Yeah. Yeah. They just think when we're talking, I'm not literally scribbling away. I am literally scribbling away all the notes of what we're talking about. And I tend to record them as well. So that doesn't help. And they do get that as well, kind of thing. So, but I agree. I think it's, if you've got that time, financial advisors, mortgage brokers will set time out for, a lot of them use online diaries. A lot of them will sort of say, right, I'll accept clients from these times. I'll structure my week. I'll structure my days. It's just about putting in though. And do you find that it will get easy? Like you talked there about the first time you did a video. I know the first time, even now, it's 10, like a short will take sometimes 10 takes. And I've written the short and I go, why have you written that like that? Why have you done it like that? Because you can't even talk that way. So why have you done it? But I think people sort of say, oh, we just see this perfect camera, this perfect lighting, this perfect, and just one take. But what they don't see is 15 takes, bloopers in the background that it's taken to get to that one take. And they just see that thinking, oh, they're really good, they're amazing, they do this. Well, actually, what you don't see is all the background stuff where it all goes wrong. And I've recorded stuff. I've recorded a podcast and I've not hit record, and I've interviewed somebody and hit record. But it's like now, it's like, well, what's the, like? And I dealt with that. One where the camera wasn't working, and he's just thinking, well, what's the worst can happen? Like, it's not. You just get on with it. You just deal with it.
Yeah, I found that for me personally, the more I've done it and the more practice I've given myself and the more experience, it does get quicker and easier. So, I like to record things in batches. So if I'm doing videos for Instagram, they're normally only a minute or 2 long, but I will record like 5 to 10 in one go, just so that I've got a little bank of content there. I've had to set up my tripod and things. I can get it all done in one go, edit them all in one go, and then I've not got to worry about it again for a few weeks because I know that I've got several videos in the bag. And I think having done that process, it's each time I record, I'm quicker at it and I don't do as many takes. And I'm also not such a perfectionist. The first few times of recording, it was like, oh gosh, this little bit of hair sticking up over there. And now I'm just like, I don't care.
Yeah.
People are not bothered about what's in the background, what I look like. They're bothered about what I'm saying. They want the information. So I think, if we could give anyone a bit of advice, it would be just get on with it, because the more you do it, the more you practice it, it will get easier. It really will.
And it, like you say, it does. It's just about taking action and just getting, like you said, getting on with it. It's sort of, I know when I started to look to do, like when I set my firm up, I was not on, so I had no personal social media whatsoever, but I knew I had to do it. So you just get on with it. It's like when I started the podcast sort of 2 years ago, I wanted to do it and I absolutely love doing it now. But like when you're first doing the first ones, I can remember sat at 11 o'clock at night doing various things, where now it takes me 5 seconds to edit it. She's like, right, yeah, that'll do. Get it out there kind of thing. Because like you say, it's about the content. People are not bothered about, to be fair, people do. People pick up and say, Craig, you left this bit in. Oh, yeah, do you know what? I forgot to edit that bit out. But I don't. And at the beginning, you worry too much about that, thinking, do you know what? What's the worst can happen? Like, what is, I've left that little bit in. Like, I recorded something yesterday, a podcast yesterday, and the guest's mic wasn't great. So halfway through, now the chances, I made myself a note, I've got loads of things all over the place to remind me to do it, because we had to pause and stop, but then guarantee that might forget to do that, and then it will just go out there. But I think people just worry too much about having that perfection when they sort of seeing other people. But everybody has to start somewhere. It's like you say, the first one you ever did. I look back on the first video I ever did and go, oh my God, what? But it just makes you smile, like you're smiling about it. It makes me smile too when you're thinking back about it. And that shows you're in a good place with that.
Yeah, but also equally, we'll look back at this podcast and content we're both creating on our own channels right now. In maybe 2 years' time, we'll look back and think, oh gosh, what I'm doing now is so much better, because you're constantly improving and you're always refining your processes as well. And when it comes to creating content and recording videos, not only does it get easier and you get quicker at it, but you actually start formulating your own little processes. I mean, for me personally, when I'm editing my videos, I've now put together a checklist so that it's so much quicker. So I know, right, okay, first I do this, then I do that. Because if I've not done it for 2 months, because I've already got a bank of content, I might go to edit a video and then I might be like, hang on a minute, where was that? How do you do that again? But because I've written it down and I've put it in an order,
Yeah,
do this, then that, then that. And I think for people that are listening and are thinking of creating their own videos and their own content, you'll find your own methods and processes and frameworks that work for you, and you'll refine them and create these processes over time that just make your life so much easier.
and I think the thing is, one of my frustrations with this, Rachel, is that as a broker and as a financial advisor, you're used to processes. You're used to processes is your life working in financial services. And I'm exactly the same as you. I have a process. When I record my shorts, I've got a process. When I record a podcast, so putting it is literally do this, then do this, then do that. And I felt like, and it's still, like you say, there'll be times where I'll do 2 back-to-back thing. I know I'm doing with that now, but then I might not pick it up again now for another 4 or 5 weeks and thinking, what do I have to do with that again? And there might be things you miss. Whereas if you do this, like the short, like I upload to Insta, click on this thing, the captions, then change the colors, and just literally step by step. But that's okay. That's just your process. And I think it was something that you talked about there before, which I just made a note mentally thinking I just wanted that. The big thing was process that I took from that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like an idiot's guide or a 101 for yourself, isn't it? It's not for anybody else. No one needs to say it, but
Exactly. No one else is going to see it. It's your
yeah.
It's the same with your fact find process, your first appointment agenda process, whatever it is. No one needs to see it. No one's bothered about it. It's just your process that you follow to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So
Yeah, and to make your life easier ultimately, isn't it? And I think when you do put those processes in place which make things easier, that you're then more likely to continue that thing and make it a habit, which is what we want when it comes to content creation. So
definitely. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is I'm a firm believer of having as many platforms as you can with consistency across those platforms, because I know some brokers are just purely on TikTok. They don't worry about anything else. Purely work on Insta. Don't worry about LinkedIn. Anything else. Don't have a website. Just have a website. Don't worry about the social media. My sort of take on it is have as much as you possibly can, and you need to have some sort of profile there from a website point of view and on as many platforms as you possibly can. But is that dilute? What's your sort of take from a if I'm creating content looking to get clients, what's your take on that?
I agree with you in the sense that you want to increase your visibility and your exposure as wide a reach as you possibly can. Although what I would say is that for people, the important thing is doing it right. You don't want to be on several channels but doing a rubbish job on 9 of them and then a great on one of them, because like you say, the point is to create that kind of omnipresence across everything, but also for everything to tie in seamlessly with each other from a visual perspective and from a messaging standpoint. And if you've got a really strong Instagram but a poor Facebook, then just dump the Facebook off. If you're not actually keeping it active and keeping it up to date. And I think also some people feel kind of like more at home on some channels than others. I've had a few conversations with people recently who are much more comfortable using Instagram, and they really are not keen on using LinkedIn at all. They've got it, they haven't posted for like a year, and they just like, I don't know what, I think some of the words that they use is like they don't know where they fit in or how they fit in. So yeah, I think I agree with you. Being on as many channels as makes sense and as you're comfortable with and what you can manage as well.
I think my viewpoint is if I've created that content, I've gone out of my comfort zone and created something, I might as well get out to as many places as I can to like I say, you're not looking at it. Certainly I'm not. I don't look at it from how many clicks have I got, how many followers have I got, how many people have I reached, how many. I'll go 1 week and nobody will reach out. I'll go on one thing, and then next week I'll go and maybe one person reaches out, 3 people reach out. Following week, you're not. I think sometimes, like I say, brokers can get too hung up on the fact that, well, I've created this content. It took me all this time. But I've only reached 5 people or 10 people or 100 people or what they ever feel is relevant. Whereas that broker there's like reached 5,000 people. They're putting on social media. They've reached 5,000 people kind of thing. So it's easy to get distracted that way and demotivated because you don't feel as though you're getting that right reach. And possibly as well, if you like you saying, if they don't feel as though they're right on that platform and don't know where they fit in that platform, then, and it could be a case, I never thought of it that way, of just focusing on what you feel comfortable on. Like it could be Instagram, it could be, I know from my point of view, I use Insta and Facebook, but I'm more comfortable on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's, I think, just how it fits from my own point of view.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, I agree. I think once you've created a piece of content, if you can put it across multiple channels, that makes sense, depending on what it is. Because I think for me personally, I kind of, how it's presented on each platform is very different. And there are certain things that I might post on LinkedIn, but I don't feel is a good fit for Instagram and vice versa. So, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but
I just create content and stick it on every single platform. It's just that. Yeah, the short will go on LinkedIn. The short will go on YouTube. It will go on Insta. I have got TikTok, but I've never posted on TikTok kind of thing. So I think again, uncomfortable and knowing my clients and knowing where I fit. Probably TikTok is not something I've seen as a priority. Shall we say? I've got other. Something else that will hit priority before that. One last thing I wanted to ask you, Rachel, is about, so we've talked about the social media platforms. What's your take on brokers who are either on their own, sole trader, or brokers who are within a firm about having a website or at least a web page or at least a domain, like at least a domain with a web page? What's your sort of thoughts on that?
I think no matter whether you're an independent broker working self-employed or you're part of a brokerage, regardless, I do think you need a website. There are so many benefits to having one. And even if you're not planning to use paid ads to drive traffic to it, I think it's just one of those things that you kind of need or are expected to have to build trust and to, make sure that people can kind of understand. I think I would be reluctant to work with a broker if they didn't have a website. I think personally, I'd be a little bit unsure because you kind of want to get that proof and you go looking for it online, whether that's social channels, whether that's their kind of Google reviews. And a website is one of the things that you just expect people to have. And not only to have a website, but for it to look a certain way. And when I say that, I mean, you don't want it to look half-hearted or really old, because that can actually do more harm than good and damage your reputation more so than help you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I do agree with you. It can damage it more than sort of. And one thing that you sort of talked about, I think it was on Marcus's podcast, was about, which is probably something that a lot of brokers will not think about, is I'm not an advocate of buying leads. I never have. It's something that I've done. It's not, I would rather build my own brand than pay somebody to build somebody else's brand. But one thing that I never thought about is if that you buy a lead, whichever source, whichever lead generation company you want to work with, there is a still distinct possibility that they will still look at you on your website and social presence, even though you've bought that lead already, kind of thing. And I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of risk in buying leads. I mean, if you've seen any of my content, you'll know that I'm massively against it. But I do genuinely feel like there is a big risk to buying leads for several reasons. But just to kind of build on what you said there, you can't expect that someone's you're going to purchase a lead, you're going to contact somebody, and that they're just going to be willing to work with you. I think I would be shocked if someone wasn't going to go away and do a bit more research into, who you are, where you're based, what services you offer, what your customers say about you. They want that kind of social proof to feel comfortable and to trust you. So yeah, it's you can't. I think the kind of key takeaway from that conversation was that it's all well and good buying leads. If you're adamant that you're going to buy leads, that's fine, but you can't do that and ignore everything else. You can't ignore your social channels, ignore your website and everything that comes, testimonials, everything else that comes with it, just because you're investing in leads and that's the way that you're generating your business. Yeah.
Excellent. Rachel, I've taken up enough of your time. I've really enjoyed our discussions and our discussions. It's been a great podcast to record because we didn't have an agenda. I knew we'd be fine. I knew we'd go off on a tangent and talk about, is anything, and we will obviously explain at the end how people reach out to you and how people can work with you, but is anything that you wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about on the podcast?
No, nothing that springs to mind, but likewise, I've really enjoyed our chat and I hope that the listeners and your audience can definitely get some value from this. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Definitely, no problem. Also, if I'm sat here now as a broker thinking, I want to work with Rachel, I want to understand more about what you do and the financial marketeer, how do I reach out? How do I find you?
I'm most active on Instagram, so you can find me at The Financial Marketer, and you can also go on my website, thefinancialmarketer.co.uk.
Okay, excellent. Rachel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much for your honesty, openness, and I've really enjoyed it, so thank you.
Likewise, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. If you have any questions about this podcast or any topics you want us to discuss, or if you're interested in working with me further, then please get in touch.